I get the feeling you watched Supernatural. Did you watch that
Oh
show?
yeah. Up until I didn't finish the last season, but I know what happened.
All right. So the first time, it's so funny how Smallville launched so many careers. So the
Hmm.
first time I saw Jensen Ackles was in Smallville. I forget
Yep,
what he did, but I remember he was in it.
he
Um,
was the rich lady's son, um, uh, Dr. Quinn, medicine woman.
my God, she was in there too. Oh my
Yeah,
God. It's
so
Jason
she was a
Moore.
villain. She was a villain for like 2 or 3 seasons.
Okay.
Um, and I think
I
she
gotta watch it.
played against Christopher Reeve when he was on. Like their characters were opposing in some way. I think it's been a long time. Um, but anyways, Jensen Ackles played her son.
So Jensen, I never like I saw him as a bit one-dimensional, kind of in the same league as the guy. I never remember his name, but he was in Magic Mike. I always call him Wooden. He played Duke in G.I. Joe, which you never saw. Um, Channing Tatum. Okay.
Oh
So
yeah.
I always put Channing Tatum and Jensen Ackles in the same kind of category a little bit, but I gotta tell you, he is in The Boys now, and he plays basically like the evil version of Captain America,
Yeah.
and he is damn good and actually unrecognizable. I'd say, like, if I didn't know, I mean, you know it's him,
Yeah.
but it's not him, dude. It's like he actually like he scares me. Like I feel like Jensen Ackles was more of just like a he's like the TV Channing Tatum. He's a TV hunk. Whereas now he's actually this scary bearded like kind of you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of did you watch The Watchmen or Watchmen?
The movie or
Actually
the series?
the movie.
Oh, a while ago. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like comedian. It's comedian mixed with um yeah, it's like Jensen channeling the
Who played
comedian.
comedian?
What's his name? The guy who played Negan. He
It
great
was
actor.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan, right?
Yeah, Jeffrey Dean
Well,
Morgan,
Jeffrey
correct.
Dean Morgan played his dad on Supernatural. So that was always a trip to me because he played their dad in the first season, like, and he was in a lot of it late in the first season,
Mhm.
and then he dies, and so he does. They find ways to bring him back later, but for a long time he's off the show. But I always tripped out because I thought that Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, if you smash them together and made them an adult, it would be Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Like he looks so much like he would be their actual dad. If they were brothers, that would be there. It's like if you take
I see it.
Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez
You
and
see
how
her.
they don't look the same, but they look
Yes.
exactly like their dad, both of them.
Yes.
It was a trip. And
So that actually makes sense now. Because I feel like that's what he did. Jensen took Jeffrey Dean Morgan's performance as comedian, which is a brilliant performance in my opinion, and made it into Soldier Boy. And I gotta say, like Soldier Boy is awesome, and I cannot wait to see him go up against Homelander.
well, and for me, that is it's super impressive for him to play a different character because on Supernatural, he never, I mean, he definitely grew the character. And he's probably my favorite part of the show, actually. It is Dean on Supernatural, but um, he only ever had to be that character. Like he's changed the character a little bit and played versions of the character and done some stuff, but like he was always a version of Dean for 15 years. Like that's what's crazy. So he was the same character for 15 years. Only the people that do that are soap actors. You know what I mean? Like nobody's on a show for 15 years. And so for him to branch out and do something that feels completely different
Yes,
is actually pretty impressive. I don't think
very
that's easy to
impressive.
do.
I think now he can make the jump into movies. I want him in the MCU. I actually think an argument could be made depending on how they go with Cyclops. He could be Cyclops. I'm like, dude, you're good. You sold.
He'd be interesting. I've never really seen Cyclops played with much of a sense of humor. But he has one. Like he's a funny guy. Like he really, really is. And it would be interesting. Like I don't have a problem with him doing that. I would actually take a slightly different take on Cyclops. I think that'd be cool. So welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I am your host this week, Kevin. I am joined by Andrew.
Hello, everybody.
Pete is away. He is at some sort of lacrosse tournament with his wife and daughters, and probably not having more fun than we are. Andy may or may not make it. Funny enough, family has deterred him as well. He's got a sleepover party that he is co-parenting. So he may jump on later, but if not, then it is Andrew and I, and we are going to go off, man. We've got stuff we've been held back on, and nobody can stop us anymore.
It's funny you mentioned going off, because one thing that I just popped in my head, of course, is going back in time. I saw a film that's never been in the theaters ever, but it's the 35th anniversary of that film. And that film was called G.I. Joe, the movie. Now, it starred Don Johnson, who was at the height of his Miami Vice. Back in 86, 87. And also Burgess Meredith, who played Mickey in the Rocky films. He was the main bad guy. So, if there's time, maybe I can talk a little bit about that, wax poetic about my experience in the film itself. But that said, we do have an amazing show. No one's going to stop us about talking about all the things. Yes. And if I did say things for a reason, passing the mic back to you, Kev.
Yeah. So before we jump in, because we are going to talk about Stranger Things, we are going to talk about Kenobi in its entirety, and then Miss Marvel up to where we are. But I spent roughly 35 hours traveling this last week. And so that is how I got caught up on Stranger Things, Kenobi, and Miss Marvel. I was reminded that I could log into my iPad and download these particular shows. So I watched them on the plane when I had no internet. But also while I was on the plane on the way to California on Monday, I put on Uncharted on my little iPad. And I have been meaning to watch Uncharted for a while. I didn't go see it in the theater. My kids didn't seem too interested in it. But the thing about Uncharted is I am a big fan of the games. I've played them all. And I've played them all multiple times. And so I'm a huge fan of the character. I'm a huge fan of the actor Nolan North that plays Nathan Drake in the video games. And there was a general consensus that the Uncharted movie was not great amongst at least fans of the game itself. And there were a lot of people that didn't see the movie because they'd never played the game. And so it's a hard market, I think, for a video game movie sometimes, because if you're not making the exact same thing, then it's weird. And so the thing about Uncharted, if you've never played the game, is the character Nathan Drake is roughly 30s to 40s, right? The fan casting for something Uncharted has always been, if it was going to be live action, everybody wanted Nathan Fillion. Because Nathan Fillion, like if you play the games, the personality is there. Like they are the same guy, to the point where if you really fire up Uncharted 3 and even Uncharted 4, he looks a lot like Nathan Fillion. Like it's not a stretch to say that in the live action, like they're to the point that Nathan Fillion was such a fan, he made a short 5 or 10 minute Uncharted clip where he plays Nathan Drake. So it's out there.
I gotta jump in. So yeah, that made me think of what's his name? Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah,
it's like, because I feel like Ryan Reynolds, like even the comics, I think there was even allusions to him being, looking like Ryan Reynolds, and then Ryan Reynolds makes a movie. So it's almost like the fans won with Ryan, but they didn't win with Uncharted. And I actually feel like maybe that was the first quote unquote mistake. And then also one thing that I will say as someone who didn't see the movie, who also didn't play the game, is I've always looked at movies that come out in January and February as that's the graveyard. Like that's the graveyard. Like the
Yep.
studios know the movies aren't good, so they put them there. So like right there, it's already like, So anyway, I just want to throw that out there as a thought as you talked.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think the problem is that you make a movie like this and you can't put it out in December because you're going up against the real blockbusters, right? Like December and summer are the two times when if you're putting out a movie, you know you're going to make money. And I think maybe Uncharted didn't quite have the legs to beat that. Um, but yeah, so I went in having heard how everybody felt and going in with relatively low expectations. I'm a big Tom Holland fan. I actually like Mark Wahlberg when he is having fun. Like when he's a little too dramatic, he loses me a little bit. And funny enough, we were talking before the show a little bit about Channing Tatum, and I think uh, not quite as extreme, but I think a guy like Channing Tatum has kind of found his lane and just being a little silly. I think that benefits him a ton because he's a funny guy, and so if he can be silly and not be overly dramatic, I think that works for him. And in the same way for Wahlberg, I think he does okay in dramatic parts, but if he can have some fun, he's a little better. And so the one thing that they did with Uncharted that was again a hard sell for fans of the game is they started with a young Nathan Drake with Tom Holland, but not that young. Like they established that he is probably mid-20s, so they didn't start him as a kid necessarily, even though when you look at Spider-Man movies, he's playing 16 to 20 something, right? And so he they're a little older, and so Mark Wahlberg's character plays Sully, he's not Nathan Drake's boss per se, but he's kind of like the organizer of bad boy things, right? Like he kind of puts things together for them when they're out there plotting things, because Nathan Drake he's an adventurer, he's a treasure hunter, but he's not averse to a little criminal activity now and then. Like he'll break into something to get what he needs and things like that. And so this is kind of him meeting Sully for the first time, which doesn't quite line up with the Uncharted games, which actually have a great story for that. So it was like plucking out this story that you're going to change and not do like the game. And so it either didn't separate itself enough or didn't come close enough to the game. And so when you're talking about arguably one of the largest franchises in Sony's library, that turned people off. And so I got past that. I said, fuck, I don't care. Like, I know this is wrong. I know it's not the same. I know people aren't going to be excited about it. And so I sat down and watched it. And for what it was, like, I'm not sure that Tom Holland was necessarily Nathan Drake so much as he was a young, smart kid out treasure hunting, looking to find a treasure that him and his brother had been, wanting to find. And there's a lot of the backstory there. It was a very different Nathan Drake. And Sully was different. Like Mark Wahlberg wasn't the Sully necessarily we see in I keep saying comics, in the video games. And like, it just didn't have the feeling these characters were going to grow up to be the same characters that I've seen. But leaving out the expectation that they would be these other people, it was pretty good. It was fun. It was an adventure. It was very Indiana Jones-esque in a way that I think there were parts of Aquaman that tried to do that tried to be Indiana Jones-ish, and it didn't really work. And this one did. They were following a specific treasure. They had specific bad guys. Antonio Banderas was in there, and he played a villain. And I actually liked the work that he did. I liked him as the villain. He wasn't like just super evil, right? Because it's not that kind of film. But he played a good bad guy. I loved the girl that played Chloe, who was a little bit of a side character in the games. She did get her own spinoff or shared a spinoff with another character that was pretty good in the game series. But I like the girl that played her. Um, and I don't necessarily have a lot of complaints about the movie. If it hadn't been called Uncharted, I probably would have almost done better if they would have just named it something else and not called it Uncharted. There are a few direct nods to the games. There's a scene that was in all of the trailers where he's like hanging off a plane and there's like crates falling out of the plane. And that is a direct rip from the game. And it's like they were trying to feed the fans without doing the same thing. It just didn't quite work. So I think it was bad marketing and bad planning on part of the movie that maybe didn't make it work. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I had a fun with the performances again, with the things that they did. It was a fun adventure, globetrotting, like they're after, I think, Magellan's treasure, or something like that.
So would you say it's one of those movies where like if you see it at home, it's fine, but if you see it in the theater, you might have been disappointed?
I don't know. I mean, the action was good enough that if you saw it in the theater, you probably wouldn't have hated it. I just think that if you people didn't want to see it if they didn't play the game, and people that wanted to play the game didn't see it because it didn't look like the game or
I
didn't
have
feel like
another
the game. So
I have another barometer question.
mhm.
Did you ever see Kong Skull Island?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll tell you a mini story. I don't want to digress too much. So I used to do these things where I'd see 3 movies in one day. It was just like, it was so fun. I schedule a whole, so I saw, I remember now. Okay, so it was 11 a.m. I saw Get Out.
Hmm.
I then saw the middle film was Logan. And that was around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Amazing.
Yeah.
Then had dinner, and then or late lunch, early dinner, and then the finale for me was Kong Skull Island. And I remember I went from small to medium size to big in terms of like blockbuster.
Right.
And I was very happy with Skull Island. Like, so when I was done and I was got kind of like the general reception, I think people of the 3 films I saw, Skull Island was probably the most forgettable one.
Mhm.
But I was actually very happy with the order and succession of the film. I guess the reason why I think of that movie is because it starred Marvel people. Like, it starred Loki. It starred, before
Yep.
Captain Marvel. It starred
Mhm.
Agent Fury. So it kind of had a generic feel to it, but it was still cool. And I feel like this is also a film, Uncharted, that stars a Marvel person. So when you're watching the film, I guess number one, did you see him as like someone who was not Peter Parker, number one? And then number two, how does this movie compare to A Skull Island?
I would say Skull Island is a bigger movie only because you're talking about bigger set pieces too, right? I mean, you're talking about Kong, right? Like that's big. I mean, they showed it in the trailer, but there's a scene where they find Magellan's boat and they basically lift it out of this cave with a helicopter and they're trying to tow it out, right? And so they're literally flying boats through the air, having them pulled by helicopters. A little ridiculous. I mean, I would imagine that an old seafaring vessel probably weighs more than that. But it worked. It was fun. They got to do these fun, almost small Pirates of the Caribbean-esque battles, between these 2 ships that are being hauled around by helicopters, because people are jumping from one to the other and things like that, and they're crashing into each other. And so it had its moments, but it didn't have as many big moments as something like Skull Island. There was a lot of setup, a lot of adventuring. A lot of it was, following the map, discovering the things. So a good 60% of the movie was maybe closer to something like the Da Vinci Code, right?
Okay.
Where you're going through and you're solving riddles to get from point A to point B and discover things. And so, there's a fight in an auction house, which is a good fight scene, but it's not huge, but it's good. There's a scene where Tom Holland's character, Nathan Drake, chases Chloe to track her down because she stole something from them. And it's like outdoors and exciting, but it's not huge. Okay. It's just it's pretty and kind of expansive as they run through stuff. But I would also say that, yeah, he wasn't Peter Parker. Excuse me, because he wasn't quite as cutesy as Peter Parker. Like
Okay.
Peter Parker is like kind of adorable, right? Like he's the nerdy kid. Funny enough, the character is about as smart, right? Like Nathan Drake is really sharp. He's smart. He figures things out, and I think Tom Holland plays that part well. But when he was doing that, that actually I could see at least making a comparison to Peter Parker, right? Like it would feel pretty similar. Um, but he did feel like a different character. But he's also, it's funny because all of his fight scenes were very agile fight scenes, and so his fighting was actually not that different from Peter Parker. Although there was a few scenes, and I know he said this in interviews, where he had to be more fit. He had to be bigger to play Nathan Drake than he did for Peter Parker, because Peter Parker is 16, 18, 20, somewhere in there. Nathan Drake is in mid 20s. He's athletic, and so he definitely looked bigger, like physically larger. Not necessarily when he had a shirt on, but there were scenes when he didn't have a shirt on, or when he's coming out of the water, and he definitely looked like a bigger guy. Not huge, not like, Hemsworth huge, but he definitely looked bigger.
I was having kind of debates on my Facebook wall, and I think one of the things I was saying was, Tom, like, you are the man right now, but I would say don't get your head too big yet, because I still think right now you are just Spider-Man. Like, you haven't really, in my opinion, you haven't really done anything like huge outside of that. Now,
He hasn't done
I'm
anything
totally willing
huge, but
to,
did you
like,
watch the one on Netflix?
no, clearly not.
Let me
I
let me
have no idea
see.
what it is.
No, he did a drama, like looked like a hard drama, and he looked like he was pretty good in it.
Sure, but like,
Let me see, because maybe it'll ring a bell when I find he Cherry. He did. I thought there was one more. Maybe just Cherry's the one I'm thinking of. It must be. Um, yeah, yeah. So it was called Cherry, um, and it was Apple TV Plus.
oh, okay,
Um,
that's why it's not
and
popping up.
okay, and he looked maybe a little crazy in it. Like he definitely looked um, not Peter Parker. Like if anything I've seen where he was not Peter Parker, that was it. He looked interesting in that one with Ray from Star Wars. They had one where was it women could read men's thoughts, or men could read all of the women's thoughts? It was one of the two. I think it was women could read men's thoughts, like all men's thoughts were like out in the open. Um, that one looked interesting, and he looked a little maybe creepy in that one too. But I'm hoping he branches out. Like I like him a
Yeah, no,
lot.
I know he seems like a great guy. All I'm saying is, like, I know that I think he was probably, like he said, this is my last Spider-Man film, and I was like, he's being smart. He's like, if they want him to come back, show him the money, just like
Yep.
RDJ.
Yep.
Like, that's all that is. But at the same time, don't get too, like, not yet. Don't end up like, what's his name, Frodo. Like, just yeah, like, yeah, give. And then someone said, oh, what about Uncharted? I'm like, dude, Uncharted hasn't done it yet. Anyway, that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah. No, and I don't. Yeah, Uncharted isn't. Even if they do a second one, even if they do more, and I half hope they do. I don't know how well it did, if it did well enough to receive a sequel, but they set it up for one.
Yeah,
And so I hope that that maybe it keeps going, but I also hope he doesn't get tied to another franchise for too long.
exactly.
I think he would benefit. Obviously, I think he would benefit from continuing to play Spider-Man. I think you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I think that launched your career, and he doesn't necessarily have to do it for the next 20 years. But maybe he could shift into an Iron Man role where he shows up in the other movies, or he has his moments and he shows up in the big picture films. But maybe he doesn't need to do more than one or
Oh,
two more Spider-Man movies.
I already know, dude. It's so funny how my brain works. I remember now. He's gonna be fine. You know why? Because he's gonna be playing what's his name? Fred Astaire to rap. He can dance his ass off.
He is a great dancer. Yeah, he's an excellent dancer.
Once he plays Fred Astaire in that film and wins the damn Oscar for it, he's gonna be set. So I just, like, solved my own damn question.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he needs to get out and do some things that are different for him. I think,
That played with strengths.
yeah, or
Well,
and spread them out like we talked about, like a Jensen Ackles before we started recording. Like, sure, ride this wave that you have when you're a young, good-looking kid with a personality, and everybody wants to see that. But get yourself into a role that is a little scary. Get yourself into something that makes people a little uncomfortable. Because to be honest, I've seen Chris Hemsworth do that a lot recently. He's got a movie on Netflix that I really want to check out called Spiderhead.
mhm.
And for one, it's really trippy to hear him speak without an accent at all, to speak with an American accent. It's bizarre. It is. It just doesn't sound like Chris Hemsworth at all. But he is very creepy. If you watch the trailers for the show or this movie, he's running some kind of
Keep talking.
psychological experiment like prison, and it's really trippy. I think it's a good role for him, because it's not an action film, or at least doesn't feel like an action film. It's him and Miles Teller and Journey Smollett, who I love. I fell in love with her in Lovecraft Country, and I think
Yes.
I'll follow her wherever she goes now. Um, and and so yeah, I like to see actors break out from that. And I think one thing that's really cool, it feels like, about Marvel is that not only do they cast interesting people, and we'll get to my opinions on their casting with Miss Marvel later, which are all positive. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Um, but they also really seem to care about each other.
Yeah.
Like, the actors in general support each other a whole lot more than in other franchises that I've seen. You had the was it the seven, six from the original? Like, they all got tattoos together. It was
The original six.
six, yeah. So they all got tattoos, and they're all close. Like, in a recent interview, they said they still have a text chain between all of them.
All right. So I gotta jump in for a second. Okay, so basically, which is why I just have such disdain for, because it all starts from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Culture is created from the top, and that's why I think that, without even being there, but that you will know a tree by its fruit. Let's go biblical with this, okay? So Kevin Feige clearly is a guy who has a good heart, a good soul, and wants to foster a great culture, and that's why you're able to get great individuals. And I think when you have that kind of mentality, you're also able to kind of detect the toxic energy and kind of get rid of it, keep it out, or maybe they see themselves at the door. Meanwhile, the DCEU is such a shit show, pardon my French, whatever, because the people at the top are probably assholes. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So it's like, but because no one sees them, because they're not public figures, we don't see their shit, but we do see the manifestation of what they attract, and they decide to groom people and go missing in other universes and things. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, no, the casting is amazing, and that warmth that you talked about between the cast members caring about each other, you feel that. And I think that's what draws me so much to, and maybe this could be a good transition, draws me so much to what happened in Hawkeye, because that's a very warm show, and that's what drew me to it, because it was literally about Hawkeye healing,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about family, and
Yeah.
he was able to reconnect, because he was so scared of loving again after losing Black Widow. But then she's like, no, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking love you. I'm gonna
She throws
treat
herself
you.
into his path.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he cannot, you're not getting rid of me, dude. And he finally learns to accept that alone he's not going to be able to handle this. Like,
Yeah.
he's got to. Anyway, so with Miss Marvel, I mean, this show and the casting, everything feels, the dad is just this, like,
Oh, they're so great.
smart.
I was
Yeah.
saying today that, like, for me, I could watch her family just on a sitcom. If you took everything Marvel out, took all the superpowers out of it, just cast her brother, her parents, herself, her friend, the kid Bruno,
Yeah.
cast all them in a show, and I would totally watch it without any of the Marvel stuff too. Like, the casting is just so brilliant, and they just feel like a family. They feel like
Yes.
real people,
Yes.
that are really, like, developed, um, and I fucking love them. Like, I love them so much. I love how how the mom is so often disappointed in her, but it's like in a loving way, not like, oh, you suck, I hate you.
Oh,
Like they had the moment in episode 2 where when Kamala comes home and she's talking to her and she's like, so now might be a bad time, but I want to go to this party. And the mom's just like, ugh, you know. But at the same time, like she wants her daughter to go out and live her life and do her things. And I think she's like a realistic mom. Like she's trying to get through. And that scene with her dad when he dressed up as the Hulk and she like dashed his hopes,
yeah.
like it's so good.
So good. And again, it's like, where do I even start? Like everybody feels again fully fleshed out. So mom, yes, loves her daughter, definitely has strong opinions about how her daughter should comport herself, but at the end of the day, just wants the best for Kamala. The dad again has his own personality when he's like, can we keep a secret? Like has this like I like the artificialness or the synthetic,
Yeah.
the brother, the aunties, the
That's
Illuminantes,
awesome. I love
like
that.
so it's like it's just warm, and that's what we talk. I just wanted to just bring that up because you talked about the casting and the warmth that people caring about each other, and you see it off screen and on screen, and I just have to give props to Kevin and everyone who is kind of establishing the culture on set at the studio.
Well, one thing that's a trip. So I read this, and maybe it's something you posted actually, but I remember watching the first episode and thinking that Bruno reminded me so much of like a Spider-Man, like a Peter Parker.
Yes.
And it turns out he was in the running for Spider-Man.
Post it. And yeah, I do think they made the right call, by the way. I remember,
for sure.
Then again, I was just funny you bring that up. So one of the things that told me, Andrew, you're getting old, is when they bring up all these names, I'd be like, I have no idea who any of these people are. So to me, it was like, you're old now. That's why, because they're all kids and you're not a kid anymore. But like, say 20 years ago, there was a fan cast. Of course, I knew who they were talking about. But the only person I did know was what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? But he played Ender in Ender's Game. So I wanted him to win because it's like, I know who he is and he can clearly, but apparently that guy has like issues like off screen. So that's why.
It was Asa Butterfield, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's on Sex Education and he's fantastic. If you haven't watched that show on Netflix,
no, but you know what?
A lot of fun.
So many people have recommended that show to me, so maybe I'll finally watch it.
Yeah,
but yeah, he was. I think it was actually between him and Tom. I think they're
interesting. I cannot tell you and I really like Asa Butterfield.
You think he could,
especially in Sex Education? I don't know. I'm really glad that they went with Tom Holland. And again, like I said, I like Asa Butterfield. I think if you watch Sex Education, like he is fucking amazing on that show, but he is scrawnier and dorkier, and in almost every way, I think Tom Holland is a better Peter Parker and a better Spider-Man.
Tom was picked for his athleticism and his ability.
Sure, for sure.
So I think that's what it was.
There's I don't know if it was an extra feature or where I saw it, but they were talking about like it was him, it was Tom Holland, Kevin Feige, Robert Downey Jr., who directed Iron Man, Jon Favreau, and somebody else, and they were all sitting around having dinner or having lunch and talking about like the casting, and they talked about just how athletic Tom Holland actually is, and how that played a major factor. If you told me that, if you look at Asa Butterfield, told me you think that kid could do like a back handspring off of a fucking bunk bed and not kill himself, I'd be like, I don't think that's true. So I do think that, again, it just shows like whatever vision it is that Kevin Feige has and his people have is just better than everybody else's.
So it is way better. And I guess got chills for a couple of reasons. And I did that because we were talking about the guy who plays Bruno, and it wasn't just me. Did you catch the Marty McFly outfit that he wore in one of the episodes? Because I talked about it. Yes, dude. In episode 2. And then so I Googled it to make sure it wasn't just me. And then sure enough, I'm just looking at it. Is no one going to talk about how Bruno is dressed like Marty McFly in the new Miss Marvel episode? So it was the second episode. He has like the vest, like the kind of jacket vest and like the shirt under. I'm like, that's fucking Marty McFly. And yeah, that was definitely intentional. I don't know why they did it, but they did it.
What my kids caught today, and I have to go back and listen closely, but when they were talking about Bollywood, so when Kamala and Cameron were at lunch and they were kind of hiding when they had to hide from her brother and it didn't work, but they were sitting there after she drove his car. So they're sitting there talking and they're going back and forth about the Bollywood actor that they have a crush on and how the crush on Senior. Dude, I think they're talking about Kamala Nanjiani's character from Eternals, who was a Bollywood actor.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I totally didn't catch that. And my youngest, my fucking 11-year-old was like, "That's an Eternals reference." I was like, "Dude, you are an amazing nerd." Like that kid.
You were an amazing dad.
Yeah, I was like, "Dude, that's so dope." I was like,
"Want to taught them well."
Yeah, and so it was cool. Like I like that they're kind of tying things in. I like. I've seen this more posted. People caught this one in the third episode, but when they're in that. When they're kind of excavating, when they've gone back to 1942, they're on the ground. There's the 10 rings.
Oh my god!
In that temple. That.
It's so funny you said that because I was scrolling through my feed, but I hadn't seen the episode yet, so I'm like, spoiler, But I saw someone say something about the 10 rings. So having seen that in my feed, but then watched it tonight and I'm mad at myself. So the 10 rings are in that shot.
It's what it looks like. Like it's definitely not clearly defined, but it looks like 10 rings. And if you look at the symbols inside the rings, they look like the 10 rings images too, which is interesting because I think both the 10 rings and this seem to have an interdimensional feel to them. Like so, I'm really curious. This is actually the one thing that I'm hoping we get from Andy at some point. He said, I think it was in our text chat, but he said like he felt like there's a crossover coming with Miss Marvel, and I don't know where.
I heard that I think we said it on the show, didn't we? Say that what's her name's going to show up at some point, Kate Bishop. Now, I personally don't see how or why she'd show up. As a matter of fact, I was waiting for someone to show up when she was cornered in the alley by the djinn. I was like, okay, who's going to show up? And then, of course, just the feds. But I was waiting for someone like, what, is Carol Danvers going to show up? Like, you never know with these damn shows, man.
Yeah, you know who I would love to see show up? Like, I know that she's going to cross over into the Marvels. It's like she's already said like her part is so much bigger in the Marvels than she ever expected. Like she's Kamala Khan. So she kind of felt like maybe she's going to be a side character in that because
you're talking about the movie,
the Marvels that's coming out next year.
Thank God. No, honestly, I love her.
Yeah, dude, I watched this show and I'm like, I feel like if I was a teenage boy again, I would have a crush on this girl. Dude. Like she's so adorable. She's so dorky and fun, and I'm just like, dude, she's so great.
She's perfect.
But what I would love to see as a spinoff would be her and America Chavez. Like if they went out and just fucking caused trouble together. I've already
seen like photos of them just as friends. So I feel like the fact that they already click off screen means that's totally in the cards, in my opinion. Yeah, totally.
And I love that this girl that is Imani. But that she has done nothing. This is her first
role.
And dude, she is so good. She is so good. The scene when she comes back from the party and she's just like dancing through the house, to fucking be my little baby. Yes. And then she opens the fridge and it stops and she talks to her mom and mom like, how'd it go? And she's like, amazing. And then she dances off again. Like, dude, she's a scene stealer. Like she absolutely owns the show.
If I was what's her name? If I was God, who plays Carol Danvers? If I was her, I'd be a little worried.
Right? Like she needs to lighten up. She needs to get a little more fun.
Iman Vellani.
Yeah. I think she's spectacular. I think again, like I think
Fantastic.
it feels like Tom Holland all over again. Like you just found this gem
Yes.
that nobody else sees, and it's perfect. Like Tom Holland is is Peter Parker. Like that's all there is to it. Like he'll do other stuff. We talked about it. He'll be great. Whatever. He'll have a fine career as long as he wants it. Um, but he'll always, be Peter Parker. This girl, I feel like I hope this show lasts a while. I hope it gets another season. I hope she does well in the Marvels. I hope people see her. And I know it's harder because, yeah, she's not, I mean, she's Middle Eastern, right? So there's not enough parts out there in American cinema for actors of, you know,
It's funny
of
you
the,
say that though.
so
It's funny you say that because I think Marvel is going to change that. Not in that
I think
Marvel
so
is going to
too.
be the ones to like give all the roles, but everyone's going to look what Marvel's doing and imitate it.
Yeah.
It's like Marvel is showing them the way. Kevin, I don't care if I'm being called the D writer. Kevin is showing them the way. Like, I'm
Dude, he's
sorry.
so good. And I
Without
think
him,
I think you said it before we started recording, but it is amazing how this show is teaching us about Pakistani culture. Like you use the term edutainment, and it's exactly right. Like I didn't know, anything about British occupation of Pakistan
the
and
partition,
the
like we learned a
partition. Like I've
whole
never
new
heard of that.
thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like
And it was major. Clearly, it
yeah,
created a whole new country.
yeah, and I mean, it tore families apart. Like you hear
Yes.
about this, and yes, we're using a comic book character as an example, and we're going through all that stuff. But like, I'm watching that, and I'm just like, dude, like everything about this show, besides it being a fun show, besides the family being great, besides the character being interesting, and all the things she's going through, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm learning about that I never would have learned like on my own. Like, it's not, I don't have any aversion to learning about Pakistani culture. I just never had any reason to learn about it. And
Correct.
now that it's right in my face, I'm just like, dude, this is interesting. Like I half hope that 60% of the rest of the show is just learning about that event and the
You
things.
know,
It's like when you think about um Watchmen, not Watch was it Watchmen that they did with Regina Hall? Was it
yes.
called Watchmen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The series.
And how they talked so much about um
Virginia King, you mean? But yeah,
yeah, sorry, Regina
but
King.
Tulsa, yes.
Yeah, when they talked about this, like I was like, how have I never fucking heard
Yeah.
about this? And it was so informative and educational, and I really hope that uh, that something like Miss Marvel and maybe some other shows down the line. I think Eternals did a good job with it to a degree. Like they brought in some historical things and things like that. But this one is very focused, and I hope
Oh,
it
yeah.
sticks with it.
Very focused. Hope sticks with it. And I remember now. So let's keep it real. Like I think that the other thing about just Muslim culture in general is that unfortunately, we can't necessarily control the media messages that are fed to us. Okay,
Mm.
but I would be, you know, I don't think I'm wrong in saying that there is kind of a lot of negative connotations, when it comes to Muslim in the media, when it comes to, like, for example, this phrase, Allahu Akbar. Okay, I'm just being real. When I hear that phrase, I usually think, not nice things. Like this is something bad's happening. And they're like, Allahu Akbar. So just being real. And if you cut this out, I understand. But if you don't, we're keeping it real. So when you actually hear that, which means I think praise God, when
Mhm.
you hear that during the wedding, I was like, that was deliberate. And that's awesome because we really, again, I just felt like I was being edutained. Like
Mhm.
this isn't an extremist, and when I use the other word, an extremist saying they've taken something holy, the Quran, and perverted it, really. So
Mhm.
let's just be real, okay? And but it's not like, again, the show is not being preachy. It's just saying this is who we are. And it's so hard to do. There's a million ways to get this wrong and only a few ways to get it right. And they're getting it so right. Okay.
Well, yeah, and
I
just
even loved one more thing.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
loved how even during the wedding scene, they asked them 3 times.
I was
Like,
just going to say that. Like, I thought that was so
take
cool.
it out. Take it.
Like I really thought like that's literally exactly what I was about to interrupt with, is that it was so neat to have them, and then to see that they also had fun with it, right? Like, they understand that it's tradition. They understand that, I assume it's tradition. This is the first Pakistani wedding I've ever seen, but you know, and how he had fun with it, you know, and she had fun with it, and I was like, that was cool. Like the whole wedding and how they just sit there and like at a table instead of standing, and it was a really.
And can I say something?
Yeah.
I was actually sad that the wedding had to be canceled. I was so like, I was so into the wedding and the dancing and everything. I felt like I was there. And I was like, the food's gonna be on point, dude. Like, oh, dude, that one scene when like the guy gets hit and the cook's like, oh no, like she's like, out of here.
Yeah. She was like, nope.
Nope, like, all right, I'm out. Like, that was real, because usually like in other movies they're like that was a very real reaction, because first she said, you guys have to get out of here, and they're like, whatever, working. And as soon as that one guy gets hit, they're like, peace.
Yeah, they're like, we don't need this shit. I thought that was awesome, and I actually loved that. Like, I also love the fact that they have this white kid that's so ingrained into this life.
Yes.
With them. So like, he danced at the wedding, you know, he's invited to what was it, Eid Mubarak, you know, he's invited to all these things, and he's part of all these things. And I think that in its own way is an important thing to show that like this culture isn't just these people. Like, they are happy to bring other people in, to welcome them in, and show them their way of life in something that is
a black wife. Like,
yeah,
so it's like, it's inclusion, and it's like, I love things that look up. Again, I talk about The Boys versus this. The Boys is very real, and but it's looking kind of down. It's basically saying,
right,
this human nature, we're all nasty people. But like, this show is like, let's show people the way things can be, the way things ought to be. Let's show them the light within the human heart. And I totally jacked that from Amuro Ray from the Gundam series, but it's true. So it's like, I'm so thank you for saying that, because it's like, yes, he's included, man, and he's having a great time. He even knows a little bit of Urdu. Like,
yeah,
this is totally, this is America.
yeah,
they're American.
yeah. And I love this scene when her best friend is campaigning, and she totally drops the American bomb on Kamala's dad, which is like, don't you want to see two girls succeed? Like, it's just,
that was it,
so great. And at the end of that, like, his face, he's just like, fuck, I just got played. Like, it's so great. So yeah, so I'm super excited to see where this show goes. Do you know how many episodes it has? Is it only 6?
I do not. Let me find out if it's even published anywhere. Because if it's only 6, I'll be a little sad.
Yeah, like
we're already halfway there. Like, that's really
what bums me out the most about this show is that it's not doing that great as far as the watches go. Like, not enough people are watching it. The ratings are great. Like, if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes, like it's doing.
God, do you know what it is on IMDb? So many haters, man. 6.1 out of 10. You're tripping, dude.
Yeah, I
68% like this show. I honestly think it just boils down to, there's too many brown people. It's not like American enough. This is propaganda. I'm like,
yeah, I 100%, like, I struggle with reviews, and I have for the last couple of years, because there's so much review bombing that goes out now. So many people, like, when it really became obvious to me was when the game The Last of Us 2 came out. It was a
6
sequel.
episodes, by the way.
Yeah, okay, that sucks. That means we're halfway there. But there was a significant number of people before the game even came out, or the day that it came out, rated it as a 0, just to be dicks. And I'm like, dude, like, I feel like for a rating scale, you put the scale on 0 to 10, and then just wipe out 1 through 3 and 9 and 10. And I think that's where you'll get your truthful answer. I think so many in the scales that we allow people to put out there now, People will pick the lowest to be a dick, and they'll pick the highest just to pump it up. Like I think I do, and I'm not saying some people don't think that something is bad, or some people don't think something is spectacularly amazing. I just think that those reviews are probably biased, and I think you're going to get your truest numbers somewhere between 4 and 8.
Sure.
And so I don't worry too much about reviews as long as I look at what they're saying, not the number they're giving it. And that's tricky. It's tricky, and it's really interesting. I watch a podcast called Play, Watch, Listen. It's a video game podcast. It's Alana Pierce, Troy Baker, and Austin Wintory, and Mike Bithell. They all work in the video games industry. But at one point, Alana Pierce was talking about how, when you talk about social media and you talk about reviews and you talk about these things, it seems like these numbers are so big. Like people talk about, oh, it's not doing well on Twitter. When you actually look at the percentage of people on Twitter that are talking about something, it is phenomenally low. So, when somebody says, oh, a majority of people on Twitter are bashing this thing, it is not anywhere near as many people as you think it is. And so these numbers are always skewed. People will take it out of context and create the context they want. And it's not very accurate.
Yeah. Again, I think that this show, and I think we're both like, we've been around each other long enough. We have a good bead on the culture and things like that. It's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit ahead of its time, but it's also on time, I would say. And it's really going to be showing people the way. And it's it might be my favorite thing in phase 4.
I honestly, right now, like, there's still 3 episodes. They could blow it a little or something, but it really is. Like, I enjoyed Doctor Strange. I like the Eternals far more than most people, it seems. And like the last Spider-Man movie, like all these things are really good. But this one's magic. Like this one's special, and I think it, like, for me, I think I actually like it more than Wanda. I like it more than Loki. I think it's pretty damn fantastic, and I hope that it makes it. I hope that if she doesn't get a second show or a second season, that she gets a whole lot more face time in the other franchises. Like, she needs to be out there. These characters need a second season. Like I said, I would watch them just as a sitcom.
Yeah.
I love her family. Like, I want to hang out with her family.
And I think that's actually one of the things about episode 3 in particular. That one really, it was barely a superhero show.
Mm-hmm.
It was really just a show about family and love and life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think the next one's going to be cool, because it implies that they're going to go to Karachi. They're going to go to Pakistan, and we're going to see, more stuff that we wouldn't see, and more family. Her grandma sounds fucking awesome.
Honey.
She sounds awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I'm super pumped for that. So yeah, I can't wait for next week. I can't wait for the next 3 episodes. This has made me look forward to the Marvels more than anything I've seen. And so I just want to see this girl blow up. Like, I want to see her make it.
She will.
So yeah. Let's see, if we're sticking with Disney for a minute, then we have our childhood put on screen in Mr. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh yes.
I think for the Disney series, I think the first season of The Mandalorian might still be their best, like, overall series. I really love that first season. But man, did Kenobi close out with a bang.
Oh yeah.
I've really liked a lot. I think with Kenobi, I actually, they could have cast anybody as Luke. I don't really care about Luke in this show. I think he was the red herring. You know, they showed him in some preview stuff. They never showed Leia.
Yeah.
Like, and the girl they cast as young Leia
Yeah.
was, she is a little Carrie Fisher. Like, she's so perfect. Um, and you know, I think we saw Kenobi go through some shit. Like, he was broken in the beginning.
Very.
This little girl, you know, saved him, and at the end of the run, we get arguably the most badass, most energized. Like, this scene behind me is just the most badass I think he's ever been. Like, you
Ever.
finally see him as a true master to Anakin. You know,
Anakin got his ass whooped.
dude, he did. And what's crazy, somebody pointed it out, is that in Jedi, so when Anakin's dying in Return of the Jedi, or when Vader's dying to take off his helmet, he's got the big fat scar on his head. Well, you guess who just fucking gave it to him? Like, that comes from, once again, Obi-Wan Kenobi beating Anakin Skywalker's ass. Like, that's where that scar comes from.
I gotta watch it again now. That was amazing, dude. Oh my God, you're right. Oh,
and that whole bit too, they did some cool shit in there. I loved how they modulated between Hayden Christensen and James Earl Jones's voice. Like, they tied some stuff together in some really, really cool ways. And I really struggled. Number one, I never was a particular fan of Hayden Christensen when the previews came out. I didn't think the prequels came out. He was never a very good actor to me when he was doing the prequels. And so when they said they were bringing him back to play Vader, I was like, he's just a dude in a suit. Like, he could be anybody. He was anybody. You know what I mean? Like, James Earl Jones did the voice. Have you ever seen the video clips of the actual actor doing the lines?
No, I don't think
no, it's weird, dude, because it is, you know, it's just a dude saying the lines, and he's not James Earl Jones is what it comes down to, you know. And and so, you know, you tell me you're going to put Hayden Christensen back in the suit, and I'm like, I guess, but they really made it work, you know.
Yeah, I actually am one of the few who liked Hayden Christensen. I did, and I was rooting for the guy. So when I saw Jumper and the movie sucked, I was like, oh well, that was that. But
it really was.
It was horrible. Oh, sorry, there we go. But I saw it in the theater too. It was such a disappointment. But no, I liked Hayden. I felt the anger. Like, I think Sith is one of my favorite films. It's definitely it's definitely for me in the Star Wars universe, like, might be top 3, you know, after Rogue One and Empire. That's how much I like Sith. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when he kills Dooku, that first scene, and then of course, you know, you underestimate my power. Yes, of course, people make fun of it, but it's like, he's so deranged. Or even just like, what have I done? Like, when he kills not kills, but, you know, like, when he messes up Mace, like, he's just this tortured guy. And I feel like bringing him back was redemption, because I felt like, okay, people diss him, but no, we're gonna like take you from the farm life that you banished yourself. You literally said, I'm gonna go live on a farm and just not be an actor, fuck Hollywood. No, come back, reprise your role, and actually, like, you know, just solidify your shit. And he did. So when they modulated between his voice and, you know, because I also kind of didn't really get, how did you go from you underestimate my power to Obi-Wan is such a way, like it's like, oh, he's so, like, because Vader is so chill, right? But like, you actually see like the chill persona in a way is almost like an act. It's like, no, like, he was being all chill because he wants to be all powerful, but then after he got sunned, you know, it's a hip-hop slang, sunned by, like, you know, by Obi-Wan, like, made him his bitch. You see that whiny Vader come back out again. But then it was creepy as fuck when Vader is like, it wasn't your fault, I killed Anakin. And then he's like, well, then you surely lost, you know. And I'm like, okay, then why did you kill him? But I get it.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's
I was like, you
why
had
did
him, dude.
you
Just
kill him? You
fucking
could have killed him. You could have saved us all so much grief. But I get it. Then you beat the dark too or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But but no, that was so good. And I haven't even gotten to, because I want to get to another part, but I want to make sure you get all your stuff out first. But I want to get to the parting between Leia and fucking Obi-Wan, because that shit was amazing. But before that, let's finish with the fight scene, because the fight scene was incredible. Why is it, okay, a couple things. Why is it that Vader like rolls him around in the fire? That was definitely some petty shit, but it was cool and scary. But then he just leaves them there. They keep leaving each other. They keep leaving each other. Like, he's not dead yet. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm gonna bury him with rocks, walk away. It's almost like they're like, it's like a cat and mouse thing. It's
like they can't, they know each other so well, or they've known each other for so long. They fought side by side, and you get it even more if you watch the Clone Wars. They spent so much time together, and he says it in Sith, where you were my brother. Like, they're so close. I don't know that they could ever be the one to kill the other one, even for as bad as Vader is.
I buy it.
That they kind of always have to leave the hope that the other one will pull through from whatever. Like, when Obi-Wan leaves him on Mustafar after he's cut his arms and his legs off, he's dying, but at the same time, like, maybe it's even more that they just can't watch the other one die either, right?
Well, I buy that, but then that then flies in the face of some critique that I got in my inbox yesterday or today, and someone said, what I don't get about this last episode is when Obi-Wan leaves Vader and flies off, why did the Star Destroyer just follow him and blow him out of the sky? And I said, probably because they were afraid, like, if they kill Obi-Wan, then Vader's coming for their asses. But what do you think?
What I saw is that I didn't see the Star Destroyer at all in that shot.
That's what he said, and then he said, and that's why he was like, "This isn't bullshit. Where the fuck's the Star Destroyer?"
Yeah, the only thing I think of is he left the other side of the planet. You know what I mean? Like, a Star Destroyer is big, but
you know what? I buy that too.
You could not be seen from one side or the other.
I buy that too. You know what?
And I can see Vader going down and saying, "Give us our space," because that is his thing. The other thing that I think, when we see Vader in Empire, even though he goes, Rogue One kind of tightens that up, and he fucks shit up at the end of Rogue One. He is chill by this point after 9 years, depending on what they do with the canon in between here now. But he hasn't had any real opposition like an Obi-Wan Kenobi since then. Like, he's king shit. Like, there's some people that don't believe in him, and he fucking chokes them out. Like, who in the Empire can actually stand up to Vader besides the Emperor? So I think some of his calmness comes out of him being a badass. But one thing that I was reminded of when they did their flashback, and so it was him and Hayden battling in the past, but in this show, is that I think Anakin was always the better warrior, or the better fighter necessarily, than Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan Kenobi was always the chess player. He was always the smartest of the two. Like, he was more clever, and that's what always made him the better fighter in training. And so when he doesn't let Anakin step up, he doesn't let him become a full Jedi, and they have that conversation. And then later on in episode 2, is that when he's whining about not, Obi-Wan won't let me be, I forget the line now, but he basically says Obi-Wan doesn't want me to be, a Jedi, or he won't let me be a Jedi, and they cover that. It's what he says to him in the end of that training scene. He's like, "You're not ready. You're too hot-headed," and that's the thing. That's was always Vader's weakness, is that rage gets him.
Yeah.
And that's why Obi-Wan ultimately was always a step ahead. And then you had this fight where it's so funny, because we're going to talk about Stranger Things after this, but they both had kind of the same moment in that when Obi-Wan is at his last, right? He's buried in the rocks. He's holding the rocks up with everything he has, and he has this flashback to what amounts to joy, right? He's got the twins, and that's what gives him the spark to come jumping out, and come back. And I think in Stranger Things, you get that moment where 11, everything's coming down on her. She's about to lose, and she has these moments of things that are positive instead of bad.
Dude, yes.
And
I thought of that too. Yes, think back, and it was in the irony, of course, it was someone who said, think of the things that you care about.
Yeah.
I basically went and confirmed, yes, it was during Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Where Anakin says he won't let me move on.
Yeah.
He feels I'm too unpredictable. And I guess part of me actually kind of sympathizes with Anakin. I'm not saying, okay, maybe like back in 2005, I was totally an Anakin stan, but I was just like, I think anger can actually help. Like, because it was anger that actually made him beat Dooku. He got pissed. Meanwhile, like, Dooku completely knocked out Obi-Wan. Like, he just like flew over there, pushed the thing on top of Obi-Wan, drug him like, on the ground. But then like Anakin's like, just like, bah, 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 bah. Sorry, I get excited. and I so to me, it's like, that's kind of how I approached, I'm making it way too personal, my job, even like just in sales. Like, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna get outsold. I'm gonna be the top salesperson. Fuck that shit. You are not beating me. And guess what? I fucking won. So it's like, to me, it's like, as long as you can channel that energy, because emotion is energy. If you can channel it, then you win. So you just shouldn't have what you should have done is you shouldn't have cut off, where you fucked up, Anakin, is you shouldn't have cut off Mace's Windu's hands. Once you did that, it was a wrap. Like, it was over. And what you really should have done is you shouldn't have gone to go arrest the Emperor. You should have stayed put. And I just love that scene, because I feel those moments. Yes, I know everyone's like, Andrew, like, why are you like having a counseling session with us? But like, I just feel those moments where it's just like, I know there's those moments in your life where it's, I could go here or here. And I always ask myself, motivational speech, what will you regret more, Andrew, if you do this or that? Okay. And I always ask myself, because what you'll regret more, don't do. Because once you've done something, there's no going back.
Yeah, you can't undo that thing.
So, Anakin, what will you regret more? Going there and doing something really bad and fucking up your life, or staying home and maybe delaying saving Padme's life? Like, really think about this, Anakin. And he didn't. Yeah. That was his problem.
Yeah, and he never did. Like, that was always his thing, is he was too hot-headed. And there were times like the Dooku fight where that worked for him. There was times, if you watch Clone Wars, where that didn't. Like, he failed a lot of times when he loses his temper. And so, we see that. But then, we get into this last fight where I don't think Obi-Wan has necessarily lost his temper, but he is hyper focused, and that's when he beats Vader's ass. So you've got the scene behind me where he's throwing the rocks, right? Well, when you get to the end of that, where he's throwing more rocks, dude, Vader's beat. Like, he's on his knees, like batting away what he can, but he is taking a fucking beating. Like, it was such a cool scene to me, because growing up, when we first saw Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was an old dude that didn't look like he was really going to fight anybody. And part of that comes out of, at the time, George Lucas's idea of lightsaber battles. When he did the first film, he thought of them as broadswords. So they were big and unwieldy and a slower weapon. And then after that, he realized, oh, they're made of light. They shouldn't weigh a damn thing. And so that was a realization that probably came to him too late. So the battles that we see in the first, in episode 4 in A New Hope are slower. But it also makes sense that at this point, these two don't have to have that huge lightsaber battle anymore. Like, they know each other. They've been through it all. And I think to a degree, they both know Obi-Wan Kenobi is not there to finish this fight anymore. He came there to die, like, and on his own terms. And it's funny that Anakin never figures that out. And how at the end of this one we get our moment with Qui-Gon, which I thought was fantastic. I saw something where Liam Neeson basically said is like, yeah, I wasn't going to let anybody else do it. He's like, what the fuck? You know, they want him there. Yeah, it's going to be me. You know, and I love that he played that character in one film. You know, he showed up as a Force ghost later on, but he played that character in one film. Everybody loved him, and he loves that part.
Good.
So, you know, if there was an opportunity to come back, he was like, duh. You know, he's not going to come back and steal the show and be in an hour-long episode or anything like that. But he had his moment, and I thought that was pretty great. I think it's a good time to talk about, you know, exactly what you're thinking, which is the farewell, yes. the sweet scene between Obi-Wan and
yes.
our little Leia.
So I got right ahead. I got to just jump in and say, I think anybody who knows me knows I'm all about the music. So, you know, after we see, of course, Senator, why am I so bad with names?
Organa.
Thank you, Senator Bail Organa, and the mom and everything, and they're thanking Obi-Wan, and then we finally get a chance to see their goodbye. It felt so real and palpable, and I was sad for really both of them, but they had to part for safety reasons. But you totally knew that, like, Obi-Wan was grateful to her for kind of reminding him who he was, and she's grateful to him for saving her life, really. And then all of a sudden you hear Leia's theme playing in the background, and I'm like, oh my, I'm actually getting a little misty eye here, like that. I'm like, oh my god. And then he's saying that, what I thought was so beautiful, you just got done fighting the dude, right? But it's like, your mother was so, I'm gonna mess this up, I only saw it once, but your mother was so headstrong and blah blah blah, whatever, and your father was so passionate, blah blah blah, and you have both qualities. And I was just like, this is giving me life. Like, I just got done seeing the best damn lightsaber gal between these two. I mean, I still think Sith is amazing, but this was like, I don't know, this might actually beat Sith, which is crazy to me, but like, whatever. And now you're showing me this realness that has all the DNA of the original trilogy. So anyway, I just thought that was amazing. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And it was a great, I just hope they did see each other again, but if they didn't, then it just makes her sending the message to Obi-Wan through R2 that much more poignant, that after all those years, she still knew she could count on him. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was great. I feel like they can't really see each other again, only because of the wording of her message in Empire, right? Or not Empire, in A New Hope, where it's, you know, you fought with my dad in the Clone Wars. There's nothing to suggest that they knew each other, and they kind of had to work around that, dance around that a little bit. And there's really, she's not wrong, right? What she says in the thing applies. So it's fine, and maybe she was just being vague for the sake of being vague. But like, she got her little holster, like, and you see all the seeds of her becoming exactly who she is. Like, she is even in A New Hope, when they rescue her, she's like, can we go fuck shit up, please? Like, she's a badass. Like, she's tough. And I think that was pretty great. I think too, one thing that we got that I don't think there was ever a position or a situation we were ever going to see this, is just how much Uncle Ben and Aunt Beru love Luke.
Yeah.
Like, they're never annoyed with him in A New Hope. We just don't get a lot of scene time with him. Like, he's a teenager that wants to get the fuck out, and they're like, oh, you know, he's kind of fucking annoying. And and so that scene between him and what's her face, the no longer
Riva?
Inquisitor, Riva, there you go, where she's like, you treat him, you love him like he's your own, and he says he is my own, and I thought that was so cool, because they're technically not blood related.
No.
He is Luke's great uncle, right? Like he is,
You know more than
or
I here.
uncle, yeah, because he is Shmi Skywalker's husband's son. Because she gets married afterwards, in between episodes 1 and 2. So she gets married again. It's the dude in the wheelchair, the
Okay.
little space wheelchair, and Owen is his son.
Got it.
And so technically by marriage, he actually is Uncle Ben to these kids. He's Anakin's uncle, basically. And so he's, great uncle to Luke and Leia. But nobody ever knows that. They just call him Uncle Ben, and that's how it goes. Like they don't actually know the parentage and the history and all that. And so it was cool to see them and see. I loved how they made Beru like the real badass. She's like, we're not gonna fucking run. She's like, we knew this was coming. She fucking pulls out the secret weapons and let's go to town.
And Ben's like, okay.
The only issue that I have in the entire series really is that Luke ran from this fight. So to me, there was a moment where he would have seen a red saber wielding Jedi, and then he ran from her. She was chasing him on the cliffs. Like he saw this person that was, Jedi or whatever. But when you watch A New Hope, the idea of the Jedi is so far removed from him that like it doesn't seem real, but like he actually saw it be real. Like he was there when they were fighting her. He was running from her in fear. It seems to me like there would be this memory of that event in his brain. Right. It's only 9 years later. It's not that far down the line. So that was the only like nitpicky continuity thing I have in the whole thing, is just like,
like another critique that someone brought up to me, and I'm willing to overlook it because I think it was insanity. Was this person was like, what is Reva's motivation to go after Luke at this point? She's already been kind of like, found out and left for dead. So why she's going after him? And I'm thinking, well, at this point, it was temporary insanity. She's like, look, this is all I've lived for. I'm still trying to prove myself to these people, and I'm going to do what I have to do. The fact that she didn't do it, I think was I think it was very, what's the word? It was believable. Like she is a child of trauma, and she realized that no.
Yeah, I think she went there as a measure of revenge, not understanding completely that Vader wouldn't know what it meant. You know what I mean? Like it seemed to me that she got something from that conversation with Obi-Wan where she knew that this was
his kid.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and I think she was looking to get revenge against him and the bloodline, something that would feel final to her. And when she had that moment, it was if I do this, I'm just as bad as he is.
Yeah.
And that wasn't who she was. And I'm really like, if they do another Obi-Wan series, I'm curious to see if it brings her back, if it ties into her, because I think her character has somewhere to go. And I think as an actor, I think she came a long way. I didn't care much for her.
A long way.
Yeah, I didn't care for her much in the first episode as an actor. I thought the character was interesting, but she was a little iffy. And I thought by the end, I thought she was great. Like I felt all the sympathy in the world for her. You know who she was.
Yes.
And it was good. Like if they have a season with her as a character, I don't know that Obi-Wan necessarily train her, but maybe he can help her and things like that. She may also show up. They're talking about making a live action series out of the Jedi video games, the Jedi Fallen Order and the now Jedi Survivor that's coming out next year. with the kid that plays the main character from Shameless. So they're talking about casting that actor to play the same character, Cal Kestis, in his own like series. And it would make sense if she showed up in there because the Inquisitors show up in those games.
Cool.
So that'd be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I have no real complaints about Kenobi. I loved it. I thought the couple of fights between Kenobi and Vader were great. I thought the first one was good because you saw a broken Obi-Wan fighting Kenobi, and you know him doing his best with where he was at, but not really being able to beat Vader. And then that turnaround in the end where he kind of beats Vader's ass, and it's definitely a different fight. And I think it was good to see Obi-Wan as about as badass as I think we'll ever see him.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And even that facial expression that is on his face in your background said it all. The last thing I want to say before we move to another topic is that one scene where Vader pulls the ship back, you know, with using the Force in the 5th episode was amazing. I and scary. Like,
yeah,
like, damn, dude.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where they really took something that wasn't necessarily a huge moment, right? Like it wasn't this big. It just shows you how strong he is. Because especially if you look at it in the context of episode 9, so 9 was 8. It was 9, I think. Where
with Rey when she actually explodes. The ship.
It was 9 when she's trying to pull it back and Kylo Ren's pulling it back, and they're doing it, but they're struggling. That ship was way smaller.
Yeah,
and and I granted they're fighting each other, but Vader's like boom, boom, like he's a badass. Like there's no question. And so I thought that was pretty awesome. So. But with Kenobi under our belt, we move on to the one thing that useless Pete has stopped us from talking about for so long, and now he's not here to stop us. Season 4 of Stranger Things.
Telekinesis, baby. I want telekinesis powers, man. So that's like Force shit right there. It's actually a segue. I mean, you know, you've seen it most recently. I've already raved about it, I think, several times on this show. So I'm giving you the floor. But
so the first thing I wanted to ask, because you said that you felt like there was a big plot twist and there are some things you didn't see coming, and I'm wondering what those are.
All right, I'll tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
So so number one. Well, first of all, him being number one, I'm a bit oblivious. Okay, so I didn't see him being number one. Number two, he totally had me fooled. When he was like, oh yeah, like I was thinking Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, yeah, breaking out of the jail.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, she's like, I'm like, wait a minute, like he's just killing people and not really caring. And then all of a sudden there's blood everywhere. And then you see that transformation in his face. I'm like, yeah, it's a little makeup, but dude, that is an amazing actor because when he went evil, I was like, holy shit, like you're not just evil, you're like a monster. And then the one I really didn't see, chills, is he was the fucking kid in the family. That to me, so skull fragments again, already blown that he's like this nice little orderly who's actually number one and he's evil, but then the bulldozer over the fragments that exploded was when he was there the whole fucking time, and he was the one killing all the animals, and he killed his fucking mom and his sister and framed his dad. What? Like so like that's amazing. Okay, go.
For me, the number one thing actually didn't surprise me. And the reason is I actually thought that he was one for a long time, but I actually didn't think he was there. Like I thought he was inside, like almost like inside her mind, like projecting himself so she would see him and do these things. Because you never really, other than when they're torturing him in that room when she sees him get like getting beat and electrocuted or whatever, you don't really see him interact with anybody else. So I wasn't sure that he was actually even there. Um, and so when you kind of get the impression that finally that he is real, I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. I think that the moment that he became really real to me more than anything else was when he pointed out the chip in his neck. And when he pointed that out, I was like, okay, he's bad. Like I knew when that chip was in there and he was trying to talk her into taking it out. That's what I knew exactly what was happening in the beginning of the episode season and what was coming next. Like he was going to fuck everything up. And I think I knew that he was the son, but I think I had seen something posted that made me think that.
Okay.
Because I think it was well enough hidden that I probably shouldn't have known it, but I think I did. I think I saw something like some screenshot or something that showed the kid that made me think about that kid more later on. Because once they showed him in the earlier episode, then they never showed him as a kid again, right? They never showed that child, the son again, and never talked about him. And so I think I only thought of him because I saw something that referenced the kid later. But it was good. Like it was good. He's the bad guy. I don't know where they go from here. I'm really curious to see what happens in the back half of the season because he's doing bad guy shit in the Upside Down. He has definitely gotten more and more and more powerful. I like how they've implied why he's able to break these holes open. They're in places where somebody has died. He's killing these people not just to get himself power, but he's opening up more and more holes. So there's the hole where the one girl died. There's going to be a hole in the road where he killed the dorky kid, right? So I've seen stuff in the trailers. They show him as himself, not as Vecna, but as himself, like at that bridge, and there's a big storm overhead.
So actually, I've been trying to stay away because I'm so invested in this show, and as you can tell by my reaction, like part of this satisfaction for me is, just going along for the ride, and I really like good storytelling, and I just felt like this is a damn good story. I haven't gotten to characters yet. But I don't know either. But I just think whatever they're gonna do, at least based on what I've seen so far, I don't see it as being predictable. They keep saying someone's gonna die.
I've heard the term body count from the Duffer brothers at this point. So I mean, it could be anybody. I mean, everybody's in danger to a degree. I mean, Steve's been bit, right, by these things that have proven that if you get attacked by these things, it doesn't go well. You don't feel good afterwards. They've got Nancy in the pool or around the pool, or no, she's actually at his house now. She got out of that pool, right? And then Vecna walked her around. That's where we got the whole backstory. But she's with him at this point.
And she might actually end up getting so that's I mean, even the idea of the mind flayer like sensing his presence and then shocking him and turning him into Vecna, like that's crazy, because I think the mind flayer was more of like a mindless, not mindless, but just kind of like a faceless goon. Like he didn't really care about the mind flayer. But I feel like Vecna is a very palpable villain, and
he's a villain with a purpose.
Yes.
And it almost feels like he maybe created the Upside Down from his life. Like it centers on his house, and we see him being turned, like when he gets thrown into what amounts to the Upside Down by 11 near the end, he's kind of floating between two planes. He's getting hit with all that, Darth Vader lightning, like he's going through the thing, right? And when he hits the ground, it doesn't necessarily look like he's hitting the ground in a version of Hawkins. right? And all the things in Hawkins seem to be tied to events that we have seen, where when we see Nancy's house, it's from when Will went missing. When we see Vecna's house, it's the house from when he was a kid, like the house that he's in. And it's interesting, there's two versions of that. There's him in the house with all the tentacles, kind of floating up in the air and everything and feeding. But there's also like that red version, that evil like castle that's torn apart, where you have the people that he's killed kind of wrapped up in those pillars, and that's where Max ran from, and that's a different place. So like I don't know where he resides, or even necessarily what the Hawkins version of the Upside Down is. So I think there's something to be developed there.
It's funny you say that, because like I got the impression, I like your theory, by the way. I got the impression that the Upside Down was always there, and that 11 just accidentally opened a portal to the Upside Down and threw him in it. And one theory that I read is that the Mind Flayer is kind of like Satan, like he is actually like, he's the real like big bad, and Vecna is just more of like an advanced general. Like the Demogorgons are like foot soldiers, but Vecna is like, he's the king shit of like the Demogorgons, but he's kind of like the herald, if you will, and what the Mind Flayer really likes about Vecna is Vecna can open portals, and that's something that the Mind Flayer couldn't do on his own. So that's kind of scary. It's like, it's satanic shit without being satanic,
Right.
And that to me is like, that's still pretty fucking scary, but at least I can deal with it, because it's like, I don't like dealing with Satan. I was raised Catholic, so I don't fuck with that.
Well,
But
and
anyway,
what I like is that there's a lot of lore for them to explore, and at the same time, it's all stuff they're making up. Like they're stealing, they're taking things from D&D, right? Like you can see that's Vecna's a D&D character. The Mind Flayer is from D&D. Like these are all things that are within. Okay. Yeah, these are all things that are within D&D. They've changed them for their purposes of the story. But it's trippy. Like they've created a story that can do whatever the hell they want. Like the Upside Down can be anything. And what trips me out is that this, we have 2 more episodes in the back half. Is it 2 or 3 episodes?
2 more episodes, and they're going to be long.
Yeah, they're going to be super long
movies.
And to be honest, the last episode was an hour and a half. Yes. I mean, that was a movie.
It was a movie.
And I'm like, how does it not end in 2 episodes? Like if they're as long as they are, how is season 4 not the last season? So what the shit are they going to do in season 5? Right? Like they have to go bigger one more time.
There'll be a time jump.
That's true. I've heard that there will be a time jump. So, whatever happens here must close something off. Like they must succeed to a degree, or it goes completely to shit. Right. And then
it's gonna be some Infinity War shit, dude. Like they're gonna lose. and we're gonna wait for 2 years wondering what the fuck happened.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of screenshots that really make me wonder what's going on. And if you haven't seen them, I don't necessarily want to spoil them yet. They're from that trailer, which I actually haven't watched. I've seen a couple of screenshots.
The trailer. So talk about that.
Well, there's a screenshot of 11 with a collar. Like she's wearing a collar, which makes me think, now in context, maybe it's something like the chip that was in.
It's so funny you say that, by the way, because I think I even posted the trailer on my page and I said this is giving me serious Infinity War vibes, because I'm just like, because shit's getting real. And that's what I love. We haven't even, I was going to say something and it's gone because we're just scraping the surface. Oh, I remember now. Okay. If you're okay with me talking about episode 4 really quick though.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So to me, like the whole Vecna thing and Max's escape, getting chills just thinking about it. I saw it as like an allegory for depression and almost like she almost escaped like taking her own life, It was
Mhm.
like she was really at this point where it's like I could just let go because I'm so depressed by my brother's death. It probably should have been me, not him. And that kind of goes after people who have some sort of trauma in their life, some sort of deep
Right.
regret, some sort of
Right.
shame. And it's like, so when she just, and Shell's just talking about it, when she just like gets lifted up into the air, almost like in the sign of a cross, almost.
Hmm.
It's so
Hmm.
crazy. And then that music is playing, and then like the running up that hill. Like there's certain moments in television that just are larger than life. And I keep bringing up the first time I felt that way was when the dragon in Game of Thrones burns down the wall, like the blue
Hmm.
dragon. That I sat up in my bed, I was watching in my bed. I sat up and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Holy shit. This is like the end of season 6, I want to say.
Hmm. Right before it
And
went crappy.
yeah, before it went crappy. And so it's like, so just seeing that and seeing her run and like resist the urge to succumb to bone snappy life was just, I'm like, wow. And we're only in episode 4. Like,
Yeah.
and they're in a graveyard, and it's like, we're your friends and we love you, all the feels,
Yeah.
so that to me, like from that moment on, I was like, okay, season 4, you have redeemed yourself. You've gotten back to like what I think makes Stranger Things a special show, which is characters who are believable, like Miss Marvel,
Hmm.
characters who are believable that you actually care about. And that one rocker guy, I like him.
Eddie. I love Eddie.
Eddie Munson. Like it's like Max, you were new in season 3. We love you, Max. You're amazing. And Eddie, you're amazing too. And when he watches that cheerleader die, it reminded me of like, dude, Nightmare on Elm Street. These Duffer
Yeah.
Brothers are fucking amazing with Johnny Depp watching that girl.
Hmm.
Like they just get it. And they take the DNA and create something new and
Well,
fresh.
and then to actually use
Robert Englund.
Robert England in there was brilliant. I mean, they definitely like they have had their inspirations for things in each season. This season was definitely not necessarily a Nightmare on Elm Street season, but those pieces are there. Like there's that feeling that something is coming after them and from their dreams. There's this feeling, all these things. I mean, shit. In fact, I mean, looks a little like Freddy. He looks all fucked up,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
so they've done a brilliant job of taking these inspirations without stealing them, And then
Sort of
I
an
think
homage.
anytime a horror film can bring a Robert Englund in any way, was it Scream where he was the janitor?
I think that sounds right.
It was one of those movies, and he just shows up. He's just the janitor. He says something about, makes some crack about people killing people or something, and that's it. You know, and this obviously was not as tongue in cheek when he was playing
No,
the dad,
that
but
was a very tragic scene.
yeah.
Actually, he could cut out his eyes. Like, oh, like I mean, I could say so much. No, there's absolutely. I'm actually waiting for like criticism right now because I mean, I feel like I have to show up so much. I feel like you had to listen to me gush. So, was there anything you didn't like, especially since that? Actually, no. I think you actually liked most of season of Stranger Things.
Yeah, I,
Yeah, yeah.
I I
I
haven't
agree.
had a season that I didn't like. I understand the arguments against season 3 and how it was a little slower, but like for me, maybe it was the nostalgia that made me love that one as much as
Because
I
the
did.
Smart Court Mall. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just the whole mall life and all the things that were in there. I love in this season. You definitely can see that Hopper and
We haven't even talked about
Joyce are,
that yet,
yeah,
man.
like just their reunion for as short and sweet as it was at this point was great. I think fucking Murray is awesome.
He is
I love that he is
amazing.
like a fucking badass. He beats the shit out of the dude in the plane. He fucking goes kung fu in the in the control room. Like I was like, Murray's
Great
dope.
actor.
Oh,
Great
he's so
actor.
great. It's funny. I was watching something I can't even remember what it was, and he showed up as a completely different character on a different show,
Huh.
and I was just like, I love this guy. Like he's always great.
Did you recognize the faceless guy from Game of Thrones?
Yes. Oh my god,
Yeah,
I love him.
yeah.
I'm curious to see where that whole Russian storyline goes, because they're still, I mean, they're still there. They're still in Russia, and they're still there with the Demogorgon, with the Demodogs, you know, or
Yeah.
the thing's still there. Like
Yeah.
all they did was put themselves in a different room, and they were flipping a lot of switches. So, like, do they really have that thing under control at this point, or you know? So that'll be cool. Like with 2 episodes to go, it's got to be at least a little about them getting out of there.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think they're actually going to make it back to the States somehow, number one. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, like Mike, he's kind of lame to me. We haven't even talked about Will. I mean, that's some like pretty, it's pretty obvious that we are going to be dealing with some
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. And
So
I felt like that for a long time. I think I told you I saw it in season 2, in that scene where Mike is talking about Elle, and Will's like, basically like, yeah, dude, she's more important to you than us. And there was a very like, I want you to want me feeling to that scene when they were very young, and that wouldn't have happened in any other, you know, any other movie in the 80s, or and it wouldn't have been okay in the 80s, just with the way that things were. So it was so subtle, but it definitely had that feeling. And I think they are leaning more and more and more into that as this goes on. There was a lot of moments in this season where you're
when the girl
like,
touches his leg and he like pulls away and he's
yeah,
disgusted.
yeah. I just really was. I was like, Will wants a little bit of Mike, like, you know, and that's okay. And I think you know, I'm sure that happens to a lot of kids.
Yeah.
That are figuring that out. Their best friend is probably their first crush. You know what I mean? That it's the person they know everything about. You know, and that's fair and safe and comfortable and scary at the same time, right? Like,
because
because he's yeah, and but he's watching Mike not obviously not be into dudes. Like Mike's in love with Elle, right? So, you know, that sucks for that person that you know, how your first crush is on, to know that it's not going to go your way, right? And so that'll be interesting. Like that's it's
yeah,
got to come into play at some
know
point.
I want to know how they even address it or resolve it, because I frankly don't think I've seen that done in television yet. Have you?
Yeah, not that I can think of. Not that I can think of it. At least not in such a like massive forum. Like Stranger Things is the biggest fucking thing on the planet. Like,
Yeah.
and
Good
so yeah, yeah. It's the only thing they got going for them. They better not screw it up.
Yes.
I can't wait for them to announce season 6. They'll be like, we have to do more because it's the only thing keeping us afloat.
Oh God, please don't.
And so yeah, it'll be interesting. That is a storyline that, I mean, unless we're just making it up, unless we're just seeing something that's not there, maybe
oh yeah, no.
you know, maybe the kid that plays Will is just, maybe he's actually gay and we're reading something that's not there. I don't know, but it sure feels like the characters are doing that thing, you know, and I think that it's a story that deserves to be told if that's what's really there. I think they have to deal with those emotions. And if there's a time jump, you know, what does that do too? Like if you jump 5 years, do those feelings kind of go away because they haven't seen each other? Are they always around each other in those 5 years? Like there's a lot that they can deal with, and however long the time jump is. I'm just saying 5 years. I don't have
all right,
no idea.
so speculation. If there is a body count, who do you think's gonna go?
I don't know, man. Like I really don't know. I feel like Nancy is definitely up on the chopping block. She's right there.
Can I
She's
say
right there with Vecna.
I gotta be honest. It's so funny. I got over it. Whatever. Cut this part out too. I don't care. Whatever. All about Nancy, dude. I don't know what it is. For some reason, in this season, I just every time she was on the screen, I'm just like, God, you're beautiful. I'm sorry. Like I am all about Nancy. To keep going. Sorry. Yeah. Fuck it. Leave it in up there.
See, it's so funny for me. Like I love Robin. She's just my fucking favorite. I love her.
We can totally hang out. We'll not we'll never cross the streams. You can have Robin. I can have Nancy. Like,
but I'm not Robin's type. But I love love
yeah.
Robin. Like I love when she's with Nancy, she's like, this isn't a fucking thing, right?
Yes.
She's like strictly platonic, like she's hammering it home, but she's like at the same time, like she's there for her boy. She's like, you could get with this dude,
It's so funny how, and it was so also the redemption of Steve, dude, because like you
Mhm.
could just see, like you can see it in both of them. They played that so well. Like we totally want each other still, but we're not going to be blatant about it, but we're also not going to like hide. Like even to the point of like when they're splitting up and like Steve wants to make sure he's with Nancy and like all of that. Oh, and by the way, Dustin, MVP, like seriously, dude, like, you are a smart dude. Hawkins, I've said it before, Hawkins, if not the world, would be fucked without you, man. You're figuring out everything. Like even like, oh, the portal's here, or oh, like we can communicate via the lights. Like, dude, Dustin, thank you. Like, thank
And
you.
I love how Dustin and Steve are like best friends. They're like when he takes his shirt off and somebody says something about like the chest hair, Dustin's like, dude, I told him. He's like, he thinks it helps him with the ladies. What, like, so many fucking funny moments and between them, and how like personality wise, Dustin's actually like the cooler one of the two.
Yeah.
Like Steve's kind of an idiot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I love their dynamic and how that's been building since season 2,
Yes.
right? And specifically between them, I know like Steve was Big Brother Steve in season 2 and even in season 3, but like their bond between the two of them is special, and I really enjoy that. And yeah, I don't know, like in the end of this season going into the final season, there's 3 distinct storylines that they have to figure out. You've got Elle training, knowing that she's got to go up against Vecna and whatever else is over there. You've got Will and Mike looking for Elle, right? So Will and Mike and fucking what's his name?
Her boyfriend.
No, the hilarious stoner dude. Yes, but Jonathan also.
Yeah.
Argyle.
It's funny. I didn't like Argyle,
I
honestly.
I loved him, especially when he met the girl at Dustin's girlfriend's house, Eden.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
He's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
like, I will do anything
Yeah.
for you. He's like, I will push her. Like, so fucking funny. I like him as an ancillary character. Like I don't think we'll like him as much as we like a Murray, or as much as we like a Robin, or these other characters that have come in later
No,
on.
I own the fact that maybe I'm just not really into like stoner humor. Like, but I get it. I mean, so I would just say no. I think he might be a fan favorite too. I'm just saying for me personally, like I like
But like
just
I haven't seen the buzz around him that you see around Eddie, right? Like people love Eddie,
yeah.
people like
Eddie's
Argyle, he's fine. But honestly, like the other character that seems thrown away this season is Jonathan. Like they
I
just
think
kind of,
Jonathan and okay, finish because I was gonna say a couple things.
yeah, I was gonna say they just kind of burnt out on Jonathan. They're like, yeah, he found weed and doesn't want a girlfriend,
Now,
and
do
that's,
you know that
yeah,
Jonathan and
they're dating in real life.
yes.
Yeah, so
Oh
they're a
yeah.
real life couple. Um, but yeah, his is interesting. Like I feel like they need to fix him up a little bit before this thing ends. Like not, he just kind of got thrown to the side. He's a little boring. I get his like reasoning, like all the things that have made Jonathan, like all of the decisions that Jonathan has made fit his character, and the life that he's kind of been living in, and the shit that he's been through, that they've all been through, would fuck you up anyways.
Yes.
Uh, but I think as far as the show goes, I think they've kind of let him kind of off to the wayside, and I'd like to see them pull him back in.
I think actually I think Mike has actually become kind of the most uninteresting. I think
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan, like, I agree with you. I think Will's kind of annoying. I think the whole California contingent, 11's the only one I give a shit about,
Yeah.
and she's not even there anymore. I think really the MVPs of the show, I'm horrible with names, but I'll just say, Ethan Hawke's kid. What's her name again?
Maya, oh, Robin.
Okay, Robin, and then Robin, the one I just got done saying I had a crush on. Her, Max especially. I think she's really stepped it up this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I also and Dustin and Steve. Okay, so even Lucas, I feel like has disappointed me a bit because he's become a bit more of a follower now.
I
And
do think though that like his storyline was interesting too. They jumped a couple of years. He got big. He found basketball, like he fell into a different crowd. And that happens with kids that age, right? They can easily very much become a different person in very little amount of time. And when you're in a small town,
yeah,
like Hawkins, like those people that are the cool people are like the gods. Like he fell into this group of people that are way cooler than the group he was in. Even though he was bottom tier in that group, it still put him above other people, and he let that get to his head. Like they broke Lucas in the right way. Like it's not like they just made him a shitty character all of a sudden. Like he became that guy because of the opportunities that were given to him in this little town.
now I haven't seen this put anywhere, but I'm going to say it on this podcast in case it's true. But the one football player guy, the quarterback, or not basketball player rather,
Mm-hmm.
who gives all these speeches, he sounds like Tom Cruise to me when he talks. Number one, but he's such a douche, but he
He
does it so
sucks.
well. And he's just kind of sociopathic, man. I mean,
Well,
understandably so, but
I
still,
love his. I do love his speech about like when he says it's the devil. He's like, how can you fight the devil if you don't believe he's here? Like, and he's using the wrong terms. Like to him it's the devil, to us it's Vecna, whatever. And he thinks it's Eddie, and so he's confused. But at the same time, he's like, there's weird shit happening, and if you don't believe in the weird shit, you're gonna get fucked by the weird shit, you know. And he does suck. Like I want to punch him in the face a lot. Um, but at least he's not necessarily wrong about what's going on. He's just a dick. And
and
I
he's willing to
do think if he had found Eddie, he was gonna
kill him.
kill Eddie.
Yes.
Um, and he was obviously wrong, although Eddie was the last one to be with a girl. Um, he was still, he was a hot-headed teenage boy with way too much testosterone and not enough brains. So
Fair. I can't argue against that. You're
yeah.
right. I'm being too hard on him.
Well, I mean, he still would have killed Eddie, which is wrong, you know. Um, but yeah, that's the thing about this show is that even the characters that they've kind of forgotten about, or the characters that they haven't given enough love to, are still developed and interesting characters. Like look at Billy. Billy wasn't just an asshole. Like there was a
Billy
reason
was
for that.
redeemed. Billy actually was, believe it or not, one of my favorite parts of season 3. I think Dacre Montgomery did a great job. And I'm surprised I haven't seen more of him, at least for right now.
I think he's got something coming up though, or they were talking about him for
Google it.
something. Like I just saw his name pop up in conversations about something, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe it's even the MCU. Maybe I'm thinking of they were talking about him. Somebody was talking about him as Wolverine.
That was me actually. I think.
Oh, okay.
The last
but I think I actually read the words in an article. I could be wrong, but I think he's going places. I think he's got a lot of potential, a lot of upside. So
he has a podcast.
Does he really?
Yeah, it's called DKMH, which features his own poetry. This is according to Wikipedia.
Huh.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, I like him though. I hope he I hope he goes somewhere. But yeah, the Duffer Brothers have put together a hell of a little universe and haven't wasted any ink on any character. You know what I mean? Like nobody, like Nancy's parents, like Cara Buono and the dude that plays her dad, like they're not in there much, but when they are, they do what they're supposed to do. You know, Hopper, like realistically, Hopper wasn't in much of this season, but the stuff that he was in was impactful.
And
he was
good. Cared about Hopper. Hopper is a resilient mother effer, running around the snow with no shoes on, taking all that torture, losing all that weight.
Yeah.
Like, man, I do not want to be Hopper ever in my life. But he is a G, and Joyce is a G. Like, we've given a lot of lip service to this damn show. I still feel like we haven't covered the majority of it. I mean, we've covered a lot, but like there's so much more I could be saying right now. But yeah, Hopper's whole thing. I know someone who thought that whole part of the story was distracting. I loved it.
Oh,
I
that was
thought it was
great.
great. You know, yeah. I think it really says a lot about Hopper's character and his spirit and his will to survive. Like when he broke his ankle just to be
Oh
able to like
God.
be able to get out of the shackles. Like,
So
come
just
on.
for the sole purpose of him being able to exercise more, like that was like his biggest reason, so he could get out and get himself into the shape and so that he was ready to run. That was such a bummer when he got free and he was in the place he was ready to go. That fucking dick turned on him.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, I was
Not
like, oh
cool.
man. And then I actually like I half thought that scene is when that guy whose name I cannot remember, he drugs Murray and Joyce.
Yes.
They showed Murray passed out on the couch, but they never showed him like drink anything. I thought maybe he had actually
Um,
either just fallen asleep or was faking it. But then he obviously wasn't. But for just a second, I thought maybe he was being sly. But but yeah, I don't know. Like the season isn't over. We still have episodes to go. We have part 2 to go before season 5, so we're
I
not
don't think we've
technically
ever
done.
had
But
a show that actually had episodes that damn long. And this is the other thing.
yeah, this is,
Usually when things are long, it's because there's shit they could have cut. No, dude. This was very tightly told, yet it was still long.
and
So
it
I
was legitimately because there's also no place in these episodes to stop and create a second episode. Like when you have an hour and 30-minute episode, sometimes you can be like, oh, that should have been 2 45-minute episodes.
no.
No, that was a 90-minute episode. And I think I've said it before, but it's the one thing that gives streaming such an advantage is you're not limited to the 60-minute, which is technically a 45-minute window, where you also have to plan your scenes so that you can fit in commercials and do these things. Like in the streaming world, you make a 59-minute episode and you can make one that's 52 minutes, and then you make one that's 63 minutes. And you're not bound to those same rules, and you can tell the story the way it's supposed to be told. And I know these guys are going extreme with 90 minutes and potentially 2 hours and whatever they're going to in part 2 here, but it's cool. I like to see them just have the freedom to make the episodes they want. It's what should have happened with the last few seasons of Game of Thrones. Like those guys did the opposite of what the Duffer Brothers are doing. Like they're like, we're going to end it all real quick, and HBO was like, we'll give you all the money and the time you need. And they're like, no, we're done. Whereas Duffer Brothers are like, look, we know what we're doing. This is what we want to do. And Netflix is like, executives at Netflix are like, no, 6 or 7 seasons. Let's please keep this going. But you've got to end a show where it should be ended so that it's a good show. I talked last week about Fringe, and I think that show had such a beautiful ending. Like if you get to the end of that show, that when you end something the way it's supposed to end, it's a good thing. And I think I really hope it feels like these guys know exactly what they're doing at this point. We talked about it with season 4, and they've known for a little while that season 5 is where they wanted to end it.
Yes.
And so that tells me that they know what they're going to do, and that's going to be a good thing. So I'm excited for it.
I'll conclude my comments then with this. I always say in Feige we trust, and I would never say this lightly, but based on my reception of season 4, I also now say in Duffers.
Yeah, I'm with like Feige for the big picture shit. Like that's unreal. I don't know that anybody will ever be able to pull this off what he has done. It's just insane to me. But the other person that besides the Duffer Brothers that has that vision, and it's funny that he's also in the horror vein, is Mike Flanagan, the guy that has done
Yes.
Hill House, Midnight Mass, Bly Manor, He's doing The Fall of the House of Usher is his next one with Mark Hamill and a bunch of people. Yeah. I cannot wait. He's one of those guys that like, he sees the story that he wants to tell. And I think in particular, he is excelling in the TV medium because you can tell it in chunks. But he's telling his whole story, where you're not taking a big story and then trying to chunk it down to a 90-minute movie. Instead, you're getting somewhere between 4 and 8 hours of story told in a way that is palpable for people. But his building of suspense is amazing. Like, if you haven't watched Hill House, like The Haunting of Hill House was amazing. Bly Manor, brilliant. Midnight Mass was just a whole other thing. Like, Midnight Mass was so intelligent in the way that it tackled religion and a vampire story in a way that it's never been done before. Like, he's done it was amazing. And so to know that he's doing Fall of the House of Usher, I'm like, I will be watching the entire thing, guaranteed, the second it drops. Okay. And those guys, I think they have that vision. I think they see something that other people don't. The Duffer Brothers and Flanagan, and obviously Feige's. I am convinced that Feige sold his soul to every devil that is out there, right? Like, it's not, what he can do is not natural. Because I don't see where that man is misstepped, right? Like, I just don't see it. Maybe Captain Marvel, maybe she's not quite the right person for that part, whatever. No. But otherwise, like, I mean, come on. It's ridiculous.
That track record.
So yeah, I'm excited to see what the Duffer Brothers do with this, and then to see what they do next. Like, I'm really curious to see what they do next.
MCU, baby. That is my prediction, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm also curious to see what they do outside of the horror realm, if given the opportunity. Like, what they do with some drama. Like, are they the next Russo brothers? Are they the next?
They are. I'm already saying it. They are.
So I'm really curious to see where that goes. So yeah. Cool. So we did it, man. We did a two-man episode without Pete's stupid face, without Andy's stupid face. And it's not fair for them. I mean, we had the two best looking people on the show do this episode. It's not,
Well, you know what? If we were rappers, we could say it was an East Coast, West Coast thing, and we're the East Coast contingent. So, to the East, my brother to the East.
Yeah. We are the Diddy and the
Biggie and Diddy.
Yeah.
Or Jay-Z and Diddy or whatever.
There you go.
So so next time you guys come on, you gotta you throw up the W, West Side,
Great. You just got us arrested. We're going to jail now. So it was good. Next week, I think Andy will not be here. Pete should be here. There's a chance we're gonna have another a new person on. So definitely, if you've made it this far in this episode, and I hope you did. I felt like this was a good, concise episode with shockingly a lot of material for really only 3 topics. I think we did dropped a lot of stuff. So yeah, hopefully everybody's back next week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Tell all of your friends. I don't have any friends, so I need other people to tell their friends about it. But I hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
It seems like when I fly is when I watch movies that are questionable. Because the library is kind of small, so and I'll often watch something that maybe I wouldn't have watched, but I kind of wanted to watch. Funny enough, I also started but didn't get very far in The Lost City, the one with Sandra Bullock and
comedy.
Yeah. And I actually, it looked really fun to me, and I may sit down and watch it back here at home. I think it's on Prime right now. But the one thing I will say, even though I fell asleep probably 15 minutes into it because I was super tired and I don't really know anything that happened, but Daniel Radcliffe is the bad guy. And he is recognizable. Like I reckon, but he's not Harry Potter. Like it's
Good.
interesting to say, but like I look at him and do not see Harry Potter, and that's a big deal. So because I could, even in the other stuff that I've seen him in before, I've been like, oh, okay, I kind of see, Harry Potter or whatever. I just did not get that vibe at all. It was really cool to see him be and feel so different.